Okay, so first what we need to do is just go here, open up the folder, and inside the source folder create a new folder called context. Inside the context we are going to create a user redux reducer. Okay, we are going to provide a context, we are going to create a context provider. Right click, I'm going to create three different files: initial state.js, reducer.js, and I'm going to create one more file as state provider.js. Okay, so just a moment, let me open all those applications. Just give me a minute. Client, source, context. So the initial state, just we need to go to the initial state over here. In the initial state we need to export the initial state. Export initial state. Initial state is going to be export const. You need to use the const keyword over here. Export const initial state, and that's an object. And basically we are going to say user is going to be null. Say the changes. Initially the user is going to be null, but when it comes to the reducer part, it's going to be a very big one. So click the state provider. Let's create a context provider first, then we will move on to the reducer part. Okay, so here I'm going to use the use context hook to create the context provider. So import react from that is not going to be an object, so import react. Yeah, here we go. And I'm going to use some customized hook. So create context and use context, that's a hook. And I'm going to use the use reducer also. These three hooks we are going to use it inside our this state provider. Then what we need to do is come on. All right, so here export const, we are just going to say state context equals create context. We are creating the context over here, create context. Then what we need to do is we need to export that const. Export const, we are going to create an arrow6 function like a state provider equals an arrow6 function, open it, and I'm going to render. This is going to have a property reducer and initial state and the children. These are all the properties which belongs for this state provider. Inside here I'm just going to say state context dot provider, open it, and inside this we are going to render all the children properties which is coming through this state provider. Okay, and it's going to take the value, and that value is going to be use reducer, and this reducer is going to take the reducer parameter reducer, and it's going to take the initial state, these two. All right, so exactly what we are doing here, we are creating a context and we are passing the reducer and the initial state of our objects, and we are passing the components. And inside this state context provider, it's just like a data layer. Okay, it's just like a data layer top of it, and we are passing all the components into the data layer. So all the component which is inside the data layer, they can access all the states and the properties which is inside the data layer. Okay, just like we are sharing it throughout our components. If you're not using this context provider, what you need to do, you just need to pass the state throughout your child components. So now I don't need to pass the state throughout the child components. I can simply access those objects whenever I needed, just from the data layer. Okay, so now I need to export this options. Export const use state value is the custom hook we are creating. Okay, and we are just going to say for that hook we are assigning this context, use context. That context is nothing but your state context. State context. Save the changes. Now our state provider is ready. Let's go back to the reducer. Now inside the reducer, all we need to do is to first we need to export the action type. What kind of action is triggered? So export action type is equals let's say set underscore user colon set underscore user. This is the action, first action we are creating, and const reducer equals open, and it's taking the state, and along with that an action. What kind of action is triggered? These two objects are been passed to this method. Okay, and that is going to be an arrow6 method. This is an arrow6 function, and I'm just going to console log what kind of action is triggered. Console log action, because every time whenever the action is triggered, we need to know what kind of action is triggered so far. All right, so I'm just going to use the switch case over here. Switch, open it. I'm going to pass that action. The action what I'm receiving, I will send the type of that action. If the type of that action is equals to case action type, we do have the action type over here. Okay, if that equals to that particular set user, so this is coming from our front end. If that action type is equals to the set user, then I'm going to return enter. I'm going to return spelling wrong. Okay, return. I'm going to return the complete state, all the state, everything as it is, except one, that the user object. Except the user state, I'm spreading all this state exactly as it is. Action dot user. Okay, through the action we will have the user object, we will collect it, and we will update our user object over here. And we need to set the default state also. If anything default, we are simply going to return that state, no changes in it. Okay, and I need to export default reducer. Okay, so basically we'll call the reducer method and we'll get the action type. If that action type is equals to set user, we are spreading all the state exactly as it is except the user state, and we are updating that user state. Okay, so now what we need to do is we will have all the reducer, state provider, everything is done. So let me close it and let me go to my index.js over here. This I need to wrap this complete app. We need to wrap that complete app into the what is that? We need to wrap this complete app into a state provider which we created. So go to the index.js and let's write after here, press enter. Okay, I'm going to bring that state provider. Okay, it's showing it's not bringing the suggestions, so let's import it by ourselves. Import from context/state provider. So state provider. All right, so let's bring that state provider, close it, enter, and let's bring this app inside, save the changes. All right, so everything will be pre-rendered now, but currently it's not showing any component or anything because it is inside the state, our context right now, because this context is need to render the children. So we need to supply the initial state and the reducer, then only it will work. So initial state object is going to be initial state, which is going to come from your initial state. Import initial state, it's not coming, come on, from dot slash context slash initial state, and import the reducer also from dot slash context slash reducer. Let's bring the initial state and let's bring the reduce reducer. Oh shit, that's a method. Reducer context dot slash context from the reducer. All right, fine. Now here I'm just going to say initial state and reducer is going to be reducer. Save the changes, refresh it, and still the component is not loading. Why? Let's open the components. We do have the state provider, user is null, and it's rendering the app fine, but why we are not getting anything over here? We are not getting any issue also. Everything is fine. State provider, initial state, no mistake, everything is perfect. Export default reducer. No mistake in it. And the initial state, where is the initial state? Initial state is nothing, it's just empty user. And let's choose the state provider. Import react create context react, okay. Export const state context create context, fine. State provider, we are creating the state provider method and we are sending the reducer, initial state, and the children. Why the component is not rendering? Oh, my bad. This is my bad, guys. Actually, this is not supposed to be a normal brackets. This is not supposed to be a normal functional bracket. It is supposed to be this like normal brackets, because then only it will render that component itself. That's the reason we are not getting the component over here. Save the changes, and now we do get the component. So this is not supposed to be curly, that is not supposed to be a curly brackets. It's supposed to be a normal brackets, okay? Because just like the brackets which you use to render a component, we are rendering all the child component which is coming through our app component. All right, so that's the reason it's previously it was not showing. So slash login. Now what I need to do is whenever I'm clicking this, I need to dispatch that user information to our context provider. That's what we need to do. Okay, so let's go here, go to our login.jsx, and I'm going to bring that use state value. So here what I'm going to say is import import from dot slash use state value, which should come from the state provider dot double dot slash context slash state provider and we are going to get our custom hook use state value, and I'm going to import it over here. Const open a state object, open an object. Inside that I'm going to get the user object, and I'm going to call a dispatch method equals use state hook. Save the changes. Okay, now we have the user object and a dispatch method to dispatch our object to our user. This can be any name, so dispatch is a proper name to do it. Now we do have our data over here, and I'm going to dispatch this data object. Type, what kind of type? Because we need to send the type to the state provider. Type is going to be action type dot set user. That's the type I'm sending. And user object I need to send, user is going to be the data. Save the changes. Now when I click login, click it, login, everything is done properly, and you can see it's triggering that set user object, set user, and it's showing user success. Inside that it's having the data object separately, and inside that we do have the information of the user information. Now it's stored inside our context provider. Now I can access this user object throughout the child components of our app whenever I need it, just by calling this user object. Inside this user there is one more data also. So what I can do is I can simply say data.data. So now I just need only that data.data. When I click this login, now login, click it, and now you can see inside the user we do have only that user data. We don't have that success message or anything else, because I don't need that. I just need only this. So I'm just accessing the user dot data. All right, so but the problem is, once it's logged in successfully, I need to push this user to the I need to push this to, so navigate this to home and replace the URL. It's going to be true. Save the changes. Now click login and login again, login, and we are here. But the problem is, if I refresh, see, we do have the data now. If I refresh, the entire user is became as a null. This is not supposed to happen, because even when you refresh, if there is a token, I need to validate that token, because the token is valid for 1 hour, minimum 1 hour. So we need to check that token. Okay, so what I need to do is, the token, it have an authenticated time and it have a certain time limit. So let's go to the home.jsx. So here inside the home.jsx, I need to validate that token. So what I need to do is go to the components home.jsx, and inside that, just a moment, where it is, come on, where it is, just give me a minute. All right, so not in a home, we need to go to the app.js over here. Let's go to the app.js, because this is the place where we are routing the user to different thing. So I'm going to use the use state method over here. Use state snippet. Oh, so no, not use state, use effect. Use effect, open it, and first parameter is going to be a function, and second one is the dependency injection. Okay, so here inside this use effect, I'm just going to say, I'm going to get, is there any changes in our Firebase authentication or not. So first I need to bring the Firebase authentication. So let's go here, and let me bring this, copy this, and I'll paste it here, and let's import these two packages, get auth and the app which is coming from our Firebase app. And now inside this use effect method, what I need to do is Firebase auth dot on auth state changed. If there is any changes in my state, get the user credential, user cred, and pass it into this function. if there is an user cred, okay, if there is an user cred, I need to open this if condition. Then using that user cred, I'm just going to get that ID token. Okay, I'm going to get that ID token, and dot then I'm just going to get that token value, and I'm going to pass that token into here, and I'm going to, we already created a method validate Google token, validate that token, send that token again to that method, and that will return a promise. We will get the response, and we will return that response to our context provider. So dispatch, we need to bring that dispatch method where it is login, copy our custom use state value, copy it, paste it here, and let's import this one to use state, and we need to dispatch that method. Dispatch, first I'm going to send the type, what kind of type it is. Type, it's going to be action type dot set user, and the user object is going to be user dot data. Okay, that's the object we are sending here, right? User dot data. Yeah, user, not user, response dot data. Yeah, response dot data. Now you can refresh it and open it. Here we go, we do have that user object. See, so every single time, even if it is like if that user object is not there, if the user credential is not there, like let's say, let's keep it in this way. If the user object is not there, you need to push the user to the login screen. If the user object is there, you need to bring the user directly to the home screen. Okay, so you don't need to push that user to the login screen again and again every time user is not supposed to log in again. Okay, that's why we are using this Firebase on auth state changed. So whenever the pages get refreshed, we will check that is there any changes in the authentication or not. If there is no changes, then we will keep it in that way itself, and we will validate that token, and we will push that token detail to our context provider. It doesn't matter how many times the user refresh the page, the token will get validated and the user detail will be added to our user context. Now I can access this user context in our home page or wherever I want. I can access it. So now let me go to the home screen. To do that, I'll copy this, copy it, go to the home screen, I'll bring it here, and let me import this one. Fine, save the changes, and I'll keep this to class name as window width the screen and height the screen, and flex everything in the center item center. Okay, justify center, I justify everything in the center, and this, instead of this, I'm just going to bring let me view word wrap. Okay, so here I'm going to create a division. Class name, it's going to be width 90, width 60 or something, 240 pixels, and pg gray 200, rounded md, padding 4, flex item center, justify center, and here I'm just going to bring an image tag, and this image tag is going to be user dot, inside the user object I do have this picture, so I'll copy this picture and I'll paste it over here. Save the changes, refresh it, we are getting an error. So user saved it, why actually this is I don't know why we are getting this error constantly, but this you can avoid this error because see, if this is an image URL, nothing but if you right click here, inspect elements, and if you can open the division, inside the division you can have that image URL, copy this image URL and paste it, you can find it out that image is working fine. See, you are getting that image, but it's not loading because the referrer policy. So referrer image no referrer policy. If you search for no referrer policy, you search for that and click this first link, and you can find this one. Referrer policy is equals no referrer. Copy this line. So if you use this line over here, paste it, or capital, or this, and P should be capital, otherwise it will throw an error. Why it's happening today like this? P, it should be capital. Save the changes. Now it will shows that error, because you need to make sure that referrer policy should be a no referrer, then only the Gmail picture will load properly. Otherwise sometimes it will not get loaded properly. Okay, I'm getting constantly this error a lot of times, so if I'll search about it and I'll find this solution, and it's working perfectly for me, and of course it will work perfectly for you too. Okay, so let's add the class name is equals let's say I'm just going to keep this width as 24, height as 24, and rounded MD and shadow MD. Save the changes. It looks like that, and let me change this to 50. All right, so that's fine. All right, so then I'll add a little bit shadow for that too, shadow MD. Save the changes like this, and I'll bring a name beneath it. So paragraph, if the user object is there, because initially it will be not loaded, it will be null. If the user object is there, then bring the name. What is the, go to the components and go to the state provider, context provider, expanded user object, user, and what is this, name here, name only. Okay, save the changes, so that will display that name, and let it bring it in the column direction, flex column, and gap between each and everything, gap should be there, so gap is going to be 6 like this. And I'm going to make this paragraph a little bit bigger. Class name, text, Excel, font, semi-bold. Save the changes like that. So now we do have the that option, like what is that we do have that image, and we do have that name over here. It doesn't matter how many times you refresh. If you refresh it, it will take some time to load, but you need to use that loader and all those things. So because it's that instance, it's taking certain time to go back and collect the detail and validate and everything. So in that meanwhile, you need to load the loader. Okay, your customized loader in between it. Okay, so all you have now, everything is working perfectly. Now all I have to do is to add one more option over here as a sign out. So I'm just going to add a button over here called sign out. Okay, I'm going to say class name as px4 py2 border none, outline none, rounded MD, shadow MD, and then BG green 400. Save the changes like this. Okay, I'm just going to keep that button over there for sign out, cursor pointer. Save the changes, and this I'm going to add on click even. I'm going to say log out user, and I'm going to create a function over here, const log out user, const log out user equals a callback function, open it. Okay, so now what we need to do is, just a moment, where it is. Okay, so I need to get the Firebase authentication again. So copy this, get auth, and go here and paste it right over here and get the app details, get auth, and get the app information. And here I'm just going to say Firebase auth dot sign out. On sign out, if it is success, then okay, I'm going to call a callback function. I'm going to say dispatch. We need to make the user object as a null. Okay, we need to make the user object null. So dispatch type is going to be action type dot set user, and the user object is going to be null again. Once this done, I need to push the user to a different page. So const navigate equals use navigate, save the changes, and then navigate equals slash login, and replace the URL be true. All right, so let's check it out. So click this. Now here we go, we are in the login screen, and if you expand the value and look at that, you have the null object. Okay, so because the user is logged out, and if you head back to the home screen again, okay, it's showing us null because there is no user in it. That's the reason it's showing. If there is no user, we need to push the user to the what? You need to push the user to the login screen itself. So what I need to do, go to the app.js, and in the user object, I'm just checking initially if not user, then navigate the, you need to get the use navigate method over here. Const navigate equals use navigate, navigate, save the changes, and right after here, navigate that user to the login screen itself, then replace, okay, that's an object, replace is equals true, save the changes. Now even if you try to go to the home screen without logging in, that will take the user directly to the login screen. See, I'll delete this, and if I press enter, it will go to the home screen and it will immediately coming back to the login screen itself because there is no user. Okay, if I click login, that will opens this pop-up method, and it will take the user, and that will take the user to the login screen. And once if I refresh it now, what? It's not supposed to happen, right? We do have the user object over here. This is supposed to happen only if there is no user. Otherwise, what we can do is Control X over here, else save changes. We'll try this one now. Let's see. Look at that. Now if you refresh, it will work. Okay, if you sign out, it will go there, and if you try to go there, it will not work. So if you instantly, it's happening some that it's loading that home screen and it's going to the login. That you can see that flickering changes. That you can avoid by using the loading state and all those things, or create a one more use effect and check this separately. That will not happen. All right, so now let's move to the sign in with GitHub option. Okay, so let's try to sign in with the GitHub. Just a minute. Where is my login? Come on, this login is components, login.js. Okay, so let's log in with GitHub now, where it is. So right after, go to the login screen now, and for this I'm just going to create On click, I'm going to say login with GitHub, and I'm going to create that method right after here. Const login. Why my escape key is not working? I don't know. Login with GitHub equals open it. So here I'm just going to use the same thing, await. So this time, instead of using sign in with pop-up, we'll use sign in with redirect. So sign in with redirect. Okay, I'm going to say Firebase auth, and I need to this time, instead of supplying the Google provider, we are going to use GitHub provider. Const git provider equals new GitHub auth provider. Save the changes. All right, so that will throw an error, no issue, we haven't supplied it here. So git provider, okay, and that will gives you the result dot, then open it, and that will gives you the data. Get that data, and if you want to console log it, let's console.log it, console.log that result, sorry, data. Save the changes. Okay, and this function should be an asynchronous function, then only you can use the await keyword. Okay, so change it to asynchronous function. And now what I need to do is, okay, if I click sign in over here, that is redirecting to the another page, and it's asking me to authorize with my application or not. Okay, once I click authorize, I'll go to the console. So far, clear it, authorize it, and it's coming back, and I can't see that information. Okay, it's setting that user information. Oh, Firebase auth. See, we got that user information, and that user effect is refreshed, and it's loaded, and you can see that it's getting the information from the get auth information. So we have our user information over here, all the name and everything. It's just it fetched that information from the GitHub. Okay, but what I need to do is I need to check one more time. I need to validate the token because it's not validating the token. So for Firebase, that one we validated by sending to our backend, we validated it. For GitHub, you need to use it in a different way. This is the GitHub auth provider, and if you scroll down, they will see you need to get that credential access token, you need to validate it, then you need to get that result user information. Okay, so that's what we are going to do now here. Once you got the data, what I need to do is I need to get that credential. Const cred equals credentials. Using GitHub auth provider, I'm going to say credential from result. I'm going to get that. I'm going to pass that data. Okay, and that will provide me the token. Const token equals cred dot credential cred dot access token. Using that access token, okay, I'm going to dispatch that user information. Dispatch the user information. Dispatch user. Dispatch. The type is going to be action type dot set user. All right, then I'm going to say user colon cred dot user. Okay, you will get that cred dot user. Okay, so in case if you need to validate this access token in your backend for your GitHub also, you can pass this token to your backend and you can validate from there, and you can return back the data. Otherwise, you can directly use this result which is already validated and provided by your GitHub auth provider itself. Okay, I'm just going to use this, and once it's done, I'm going to navigate the user to the home screen, and I'm going to replace the, it's going to be true. All right, and I'm going to say dot catch if cas is there any error is happening during this. I'm just going to console dot log that error. Okay, so let's hit the sign in. It's going to the another page, and it is loading it. Instead of sign in with redirect, I can say sign in with pop-up. So click sign in with pop-up. It's opened this pop-up window, and it's coming over here. And the problem is it's showing user as an undefined. Why? Console.log cred. Let's see, cred.user. Save the changes. Sign out. Refresh it. Click here. We need to see that user object. Here we go. It's working. See, we have that user, and if you expand this Firebase, the sign-in provider is going to be your GitHub provider. Look at that. It's successfully working. Okay, so if I sign it out, it will goes out. Close it. If I click sign in with Gmail, click it, and that is loaded properly. And if you expand the detail and if you verifies it, Firebase, the sign-in is google.com because we used the Gmail. And let's try it by using now sign in with GitHub, and let's open it again. Open it, and let's check Firebase, and this time it's using the github.com. If you refresh it, still it's working perfectly. It's authenticating and it's validating and it's working perfectly. Okay, so this is how you need to use your Firebase authentication, guys. You need to this is the proper way to use your Gmail and as well as your GitHub authentication. I hope you enjoyed this session. If you're having any question, please comment it below. I will happy to reply you back. All right, I'll see you all in the next video.